On April 5, 1943, a group of Brazilian fishermen navigated the serene waters off their country's coast. About 10 miles from shore, they witnessed an extraordinary sight. What initially appeared as a mere speck on the ocean's vast horizon soon revealed itself to be a small, rickety wooden raft. As they drew closer, the fishermen's eyes met an astonishing scene. An emaciated Chinese man, Poon Lim, exuberantly waving a tattered shirt. His actions oscillated between dancing and signaling for help. Despite his obvious distress, Lim greeted his rescuers with a surprising cheerfulness, uttering a weak yet heartwarming, "Good morning." His appearance was a stark contrast to his spirit, sunburnt and severely hungry. Yet he radiated an unexplainable positivity. It was only later, with the aid of a translator, that the fisherman came to understand the magnitude of his ordeal. Lim, caught in the tempestuous waves of the Second World War, had survived an astonishing 133 days adrift at sea, alone and unaided. Born on March 8, 1918, on the serene Hainan Island along the southern coast of China, Poon Lim's early life unfolded amidst the chaos of the First World War and a devastating global flu pandemic. His family, however, enjoyed a relatively tranquil existence, engaging in fishing in the Beibu Gulf, north of their island home. The peaceful days were shadowed by the looming threat of a Japanese invasion of China in the late 1920s, casting a pall of uncertainty over their future. Lim's father, apprehensive about the prospect of his sons being conscripted into the army to combat the potential invaders, feared that such a fate would be tantamount to a death sentence. In a bid to evade this possibility, the family relocated to Malaysia, quickly adapting to their new life with fishing as their sustenance. Lim, as he matured, found this existence monotonous and lacking fulfillment. Eager to contribute to the fight against Japanese imperialism, he resolved to leave behind this tranquil life. Upon reaching adulthood, he volunteered to join Great Britain's merchant navy, serving as a cabin boy. This venture into the maritime world marked Lim's initial foray into independence. However, the reality diverged from his expectations. Asian crew members, including Lim, were often confined to the most menial tasks and received meager wages. They also faced persistent harassment and discrimination from the English officers and sailors. By 1937, having exhausted his patience, Lim sought better prospects, which led him to a mechanic's role in Hong Kong. But as the shadow of another Japanese invasion loomed, he was once again drawn to the sea in late 1941. His journey led him to serve as a steward aboard the Benlomond, a 420-foot armed merchant vessel, in early 1942. During this era, the British merchant fleet, accounting for nearly one-third of the world's merchant vessels, held the title of the largest in the world. The fate of the Second World War was intricately linked to the success of these maritime endeavors. The sailors braving the Atlantic and Arctic waters were as pivotal to the war effort as the soldiers storming the beaches of Normandy or fighting through Belgian towns. The Allied strategy hinged on maintaining a steady flow of arms, food, and personnel across the Atlantic to overpower Nazi Germany. On the flip side, if German U-boats and aircraft could significantly disrupt this lifeline by sinking British ships, Hitler's chances of victory would surge. The perils confronting the merchant navy were staggering. From 1939 to 1945, German U-boats obliterated over 3,500 Allied merchant vessels, claiming the lives of more than 36,000 civilian sailors. There were times when the casualty rates within the merchant navy even eclipsed those of the regular armed forces. The Benlomond, a vessel built in 1922 under the Scottish Shipping Company, was on its journey from Port Said in Egypt to New York, routing through Cape Town, South Africa, and Paramaribo, Dutch Guiana, in the latter part of 1942. Although armed, the Benlomond's defensive capabilities were constrained to small-caliber arms. The crew was acutely aware that their ship was no match for a direct confrontation with an enemy warship or submarine. The Benlomond, notoriously sluggish, faced an added challenge that day. Its ballast tanks were brimming with thousands of gallons of seawater, a necessary measure to navigate the turbulent seas. The voyage had proceeded without incident until November 23rd, when positioned 750 miles from the Amazon River's estuary, the Benlomond caught the attention of the German U-boat. This U-boat, already credited with numerous successful missions, including the sinking of the SS Orcades, targeted the Benlomond with lethal precision, launching 2 torpedoes without any forewarning. As Poon Lim prepared to commence his daily tasks, the first torpedo struck, violently jolting the ship and plunging everything into chaos. Regaining his footing amidst the turmoil, Lim was soon shaken by another devastating explosion. He hurried towards a lifeboat, only to discover it had already been deployed. He attempted to aid with another boat, but catastrophic blast ravaged the ship, and amidst the chaos, the second mate issued the dire command to abandon ship. Confronted with daunting circumstances and poor swimming skills, Lim faced a harrowing ordeal. As the Benlomond succumbed rapidly to the ocean's depths, he was dragged into a swirling maelstrom of oil and debris. In this moment of peril, his life jacket, crafted from buoyant K-pop, a fiber sourced from a tropical tree, became his savior. Surfacing with his vision obscured by oil, Lim clung to a wooden box, desperately seeking refuge from the polluted waters. He noticed a life raft with crew members, but as he neared, a U-boat emerged, swiftly taking the men before disappearing beneath the waves. Fearing for his own safety, Lim evaded the U-boat's notice. The Benlomond, now fully submerged due to the extensive damage, left Lim isolated in the oil-laden sea. He attempted to reach a drifting lifeboat, but to no avail. It soon vanished from sight. Cast adrift, Lim found himself in a desolate expanse of ocean, utterly alone, with no other boats or crew members in sight. His ears were briefly filled with the distressing sounds of distant cries for help, swiftly replaced by an eerie silence. After an hour of swimming, fortune smiled upon him as he encountered an unoccupied life raft. The raft was fashioned from a copper or steel tube, over a foot in diameter, bent into an oval shape and sheathed in K-pop and waterproof canvas. This design, unlike traditional lifeboats or delicate inflatable rafts, offered the advantages of being lightweight, robust, and not reliant on inflation. However, it also meant exposure to the harsh elements, posing a significant risk to anyone aboard. Marooned in his raft, Poon Lim found himself approximately 250 miles from the closest landmass to the south. Yet, ensnared in a sluggish westerly current, his path inexorably veered towards Brazil's northern coast, a journey more than double the distance. In the days following the sinking of the Benlomond, Lim remained perched in his raft, gazing into the vast expanse of the ocean, steeling himself with the realization that survival depended on his mental fortitude and the meager resources at his disposal. Fortuitously, the raft was provisioned with a modest survival kit: a flare gun, 2 electric cooking pots, a malfunctioning flashlight, a handful of chocolate bars, sugar cubes, and an 11-gallon jug of fresh water. Initially, Lim harbored hopes that the merchant navy would quickly deduce the sinking of the Benlomond and, given its known route and schedule, launch a prompt rescue operation. Yet a gnawing awareness lingered in his mind that, in the grand scale of the war, the loss of a seemingly insignificant vessel might not be a top priority. Bracing for a prolonged ordeal, he judiciously rationed his supplies, replenishing his water supply with rainwater whenever possible. Thankfully, Lim's upbringing as a fisherman endowed him with the skills to harness the ocean's bounty. He dismantled his life jacket to create an awning for sun protection and water collection. He used the K-pop from the jacket to absorb rainwater, which he then wrung into a container. After surveying his available equipment, he crafted a fishing line from copper wire and transformed nails from his raft into makeshift hooks. Using dough balls made from biscuit crumbs as bait, he carefully positioned his improvised hooks into the sea. It wasn't long before Lim reeled in his first catch. Using a sharpened tin lid as a makeshift knife, he swiftly filleted the fish and consumed it raw. He resourcefully used the remnants, innards, skin, and head to lure more fish. Aware of the uncertainty surrounding the duration of his predicament, Lim began drying some of the fish meat under the sun as a precautionary measure. Thus, even in the midst of adversity, he found a way to sustain himself, relying on the sea's offerings while awaiting rescue. In the ensuing days and weeks, Lim faced relentless trials at sea. He was subjected to fierce storms and robust winds that relentlessly assaulted his small raft. The tumultuous waves frequently capsized his meager supplies, washing away his carefully dried fish and other vital resources. The struggle to simply remain conscious became an overwhelming endeavor for him, as hunger, dehydration, and a deep sense of despair sapped his energy. His plight worsened when the once plentiful fish inexplicably disappeared, leaving him with dwindling food and water reserves. In this desperate situation, Lim resorted to capturing the seagulls that hovered over his raft. Initially reluctant to consume the birds raw, he opted to prepare jerky from their meat, waiting for it to fully dry on sun before eating. The unusable parts of the seagulls, along with their blood, served as bait and chum, aiding him in attracting fish and even small sharks. As days turned into weeks, his physical condition deteriorated markedly. He suffered severe sunburn, was plagued by persistent seasickness, and his hunger and thirst intensified relentlessly. The ordeal tested every reserve of his resilience and survival instinct. Amidst these harrowing challenges, Poon Lim faced encounters with potential rescuers that proved to be agonizingly frustrating. In one instance, a large freighter cruised perilously close to his raft. The crew appeared on deck and gazed at him, yet they showed no response to his desperate cries for help in English. The vessel continued on its way, leaving Lim feeling invisible and disregarded. Having previously experienced discrimination on the Benlomond, Lim speculated that his Chinese heritage might have influenced their inaction, though it's possible they mistook him for a Japanese sailor. Another factor was the well-known tactic of U-boats deploying decoy survivors to trap rescuing ships within torpedo range, leading many merchant vessels to have strict policies against rescue attempts, irrespective of the survivors' nationalities. Another glimmer of hope surfaced when a group of U.S. Navy planes flew overhead, with one dropping a buoy nearby, a sign, Lim thought, that they intended to return. Tragically, an ensuing storm swept the buoy away, and Lim was lost to them once more. His only other brush with the outside world occurred when a German U-boat, potentially the same one that sank the Benlomond, spotted him. The crew, momentarily diverting their attention from shooting at seagulls, observed Lim as he drifted by, yet again made no effort to assist. These near rescues crushed Lim's spirits, leaving him almost certain that his end would come slowly through dehydration or starvation. These were the bleakest moments he faced on his tiny raft. Yet, in an extraordinary twist, a sliver of hope emerged when he noticed a change in the water's color, from the clear, deep blue to a greener, more opaque hue. Drawing on his fishing experience, Lim recognized this as a sign of shallower waters, indicating his proximity to land, closer than at any point during his ordeal. Finally, on April 5, 1943, 133 days post the sinking of the Benlomond, Poon Lim's eyes caught sight of what seemed like a small fishing boat in the distance. His grueling ordeal concluded within hours, as he was rescued by Brazilian fishermen. His time adrift in the Atlantic spanned nearly 5 months, during which he shed close to 20 pounds and suffered from severe dehydration and malnutrition. Lim spent a month recuperating, nourishing himself back to health in a Brazilian hospital, where doctors marveled at his relatively robust condition despite the extreme circumstances he had faced. Lim's extraordinary tale of survival swiftly propelled him to international fame. Seizing the moment, the British consul facilitated his journey to London in the fall of 1943. Lim's story captivated many, leading to brief publicity appearances in Miami and New York. His remarkable endurance was honored by King George VI with a British Empire Medal for his contributions to the merchant navy. Furthermore, the Royal Navy, inspired by Lim's innovative survival methods, integrated these techniques into a new training manual distributed to sailors and airmen. Following this, Lim embarked on an international speaking tour, sharing his gripping story of survival with enthralled audiences across the globe. Opting to settle in the United States, Lim initially faced a setback when his citizenship application was denied due to the filled Chinese immigrant quota. However, Senator Warren Magnuson of Washington State took up Lim's cause, leading to an official act of Congress that increased the quota by 1, enabling his citizenship. When informed that no one had ever survived longer on a raft at sea, Lim humbly remarked that it was a record he hoped would remain unchallenged. He spent the majority of his later years in Brooklyn, New York, and passed away in 1991 at the age of 72. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked what you saw, be sure to check out the other great content on our channel. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.